Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Saturday, December 11th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Rose Bowl game is 21 days from today. The Buckeyes will play Utah. 351 days from now, the Buckeyes will play the game against Michigan. The Heisman Trophy ceremony is today. Ohio State quarterback CJ Stroud is one of four finalists, along with Alabama quarterback Bryce Young, Pittsburgh quarterback Kenny Pickett, and Michigan defensive end Aidan Hutchinson. Buckeye Scoop's Kevin Noon is in New York to cover the ceremony. He's my guest this morning. Kevin, thanks for joining me.
Absolutely.
So Ryan Day always talks about not wanting his quarterback to ride the roller coaster, ups and downs, and oh, you're the greatest thing ever, oh, you're the worst thing ever. But this has been somewhat of an up and down season for CJ Stroud. He started kind of slowly, missed a game with an injury, then just kind of exploded in the middle of the season, and then still had a good game against Michigan, but lost, which is all that really anyone is remembering at this point. But all in all, it added up to a Heisman contending season. What did he have to say about sort of the ups and downs of this season for him personally?
Yeah, don't tell him he had ups and downs. I mean, he didn't come out and say, "Oh, well," he wasn't going to make excuses. I think it just depends on, who the opponent you're playing and some things. I mean, honestly, he did, kind of go into, again, the shoulder injury and sitting out for the Akron game, but he's was insulated from the noise. I mean, certainly there were Ohio State fans that weren't sure if he was supposed to be the right guy, or if, maybe it should have been Kyle McCord. He was focused on himself, gave all the credit to the man upstairs, to his teammates, to his family. But, he doesn't, I mean, he was aware that toward the end, maybe in the Tulsa game when he was out there throwing, his arm really hurt, and his mom saw him on TV and said, "Oh, your arm's out there hanging," and everything else. So, it was good to have that, and it certainly bounced into a back half of the season, or a back 3/4 of the season, or 2/3. I'm not good at fractions. That where he's set some records. I mean, six touchdowns in not only in a game but in a half. The 400 yards passing, 5 touchdowns and no interceptions. Nobody had done that before. He did it twice. I mean, 17 straight completions against Michigan State, but he wasn't going to talk those things up either. I mean, he's pretty even keeled at this point. He's just out there to go out there. And as he said, I want to go out there and I want to dominate. That's what I want to do.
Yeah. So the middle to late 2/3 or 8/12, if you prefer not to reduce your fractions of the season, was really, really good for Stroud. And then the last 12th of the season, the Michigan game, didn't end the way obviously he would have wanted. And, he talked earlier in the week about the fact that he had been sick earlier in the week and people didn't like that. But, he's now sort of had some time to reflect on that Michigan game and the way the regular season ended. What did he have to say about that game and just sort of where he is with that?
Yeah, you just have to kind of move on. I mean, he wasn't going to let that get in the way from him being kind of chummy with Aidan Hutchinson. I mean, Aidan Hutchinson came out and said, "Oh yeah, I really respect I respect CJ. I respect his game. A couple of Heisman finalists. CJ came out and said a lot of stuff in kind. I mean, it was. I mean, obviously, there's a disappointment for how that game went. I mean, obviously, he's around a couple of guys that are in the college football playoff, and Ohio State is not. But don't you dare sit there and say the Rose Bowl is a meaningless exhibition. I asked him about that. He no-sold that. He's like, what meaningless exhibition, and that's kind of where he delivered his, I want to go out there and dominate. My motivation's coming from being a Cali guy. But yeah, there's still the disappointment there. But it sounds like there's some good natured ribbing between he and Hutchinson, and that's fine. And obviously there's a pre-existing relationship between CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, both being Cali boys. So it's all home week.
Yeah, and I want to get to the Hutchinson thing in a little more detail in a minute, but you mentioned the Rose Bowl, so let's talk about the Rose Bowl. The Buckeyes opened their bowl practice on Friday. Stroud obviously missed that bowl practice. He's in New York. So, that's presumably good news for Kyle McCord, who is right now the only other scholarship quarterback on the roster, which is crazy enough to think about. But so he probably got, I guess Kyle McCord got all the number 1 reps on Friday in practice. That's just
and 2 and 3.
Yeah, that is my insider practice report for Friday afternoon. Kyle McCord probably got all of the number 1 reps for the with the Buckeyes. But how big of a deal is that for Stroud? Is he able to sort of stay up to speed with stuff? Because you hear about guys going on the banquet circuit or going on the awards circuit and sort of falling behind, and sometimes the Heisman Trophy winner a lot of times does not play well in the bowl game because you're on that award circuit for a while. How big a deal is that for Stroud? Is he able to sort of keep up with stuff even though he's on the road right now?
He was given homework. I asked him about that. I said, "Did Coach Dennis give you homework?" And he's like, "I got plenty of film to go through. I'm not going to not looking past the Rose Bowl, not looking past Utah, talented team, all the things you expect to hear at this point." He certainly has gone through enough reps this season to where I think if he misses one or two practices, he's going to be fine. It's not like they're going to be doing install here on the first couple of practices. We talk so much through the years. Bowl practice is just a great opportunity for the young guys to step in and see some more reps to run the stuff that Ohio State actually runs. So that's all well and good right now. So I mean, I think it works out just fine that he's not there. He's not going to be on a long-term awards circuit. I mean, even if you win, I mean, this isn't necessarily the case of where you're going on Carson that night or anything else. I mean, you just kind of, okay, I won, now back to work.
Yeah, and he is not the favorite to win by any means. Bryce Young is sort of considered the favorite right now, but Stroud is one of four finalists, so it is possible that he could win the award. Obviously, does he have a speech ready just in case he does win?
Some of you heard this before. I asked him about that too today, and he said, "I said you're a thoughtful guy. You seem to be a planner. Do you have anything written?" He's like, "Well, I wouldn't want to leave anybody out, and yeah, I got some things jotted down. But if I win, I promise I'm not going to keep you guys long." Meaning he didn't have really any plan of having some long speech, but yeah, you have to have something ready. So I mean, it sounds like he's got some notes put together, and I think the stuff will port nicely to 2022. If he doesn't win it this year, you got to figure that he's going to be right there the next year. I mean, even with some different pieces around him, CJ Stroud's only going to get better.
Yeah, this is only the beginning for him, and I think Tony Gerdeman has stat that every quarterback that I think ended the season or started the season as a starter for Ohio State or started the majority of the games for Ohio State in a given season had been to the Heisman ceremony, at least been to the Heisman ceremony as a Heisman finalist under Urban Meyer. So basically, Braxton Miller and then JT Barrett and then Dwayne Haskins and then Justin Fields and now CJ Stroud. So yeah, there's a possibility CJ Stroud may be back in New York again this time next year. Someone who's not going to be, because he's probably going to be off the NFL, is Aidan Hutchinson, but he is a Heisman finalist. Obviously, no defensive player since Charles Woodson has won the award, so he theoretically could do that. Again, he's not expected to, but it is a possibility. You talked a little bit about it. It sounds like those guys are relatively friendly, but Michigan has not been super chill about the fact that they beat Ohio State. Like they've been extremely enthusiastic about letting people know that they beat Ohio State and exactly how bad Ohio State was in that game, which is well within their rights. But how did he get asked about that at all, or is it kind of is it just everyone sort of being everyone sort of friendly there and leave the woofing up to Blake Corum and Jim Harbaugh and Josh Gaddis? Yeah.
Right. I mean, I did ask him about it, and he's like, "Look, you got to be a pro about it, leave the game at the game." I mean, I really respect Aidan Hutchinson. I mean, you can tell he came from a great family, so on and so forth. And, it didn't feel like it was fake. It didn't feel contrived or anything like that. So, I think that they're getting along. I mean, sure, Aidan Hutchinson has every right to sit there and wolf at him a little bit. I mean, This was Aidan Hutchinson put CJ Stroud on the turf a couple of times. So, this is as direct as it gets. If it was a couple of quarterbacks, they don't face each other. Offense doesn't face offense, but this was offense and defense. So there's certainly, with some interaction on the field, and now there's the interaction off the field. And I think it's all pretty chummy.
I would assume that this is something that's probably pretty good for CJ Stroud, just in terms of his overall just growth as a person, growth as a media personality, growth as, he kind of got thrust into the spotlight this year. He did not throw a pass at any point last year. He had very limited, I don't know that he had any media availabilities last year because we had such a weird, wonky media schedule last year. So this is someone who kind of went from 0 to 60 very quickly this year. Because when you were the quarterback of Ohio State, Jim Tressel talked about the quarterback of Ohio State being like the, maybe the most important, person in the state of Ohio. If it's not the governor, it's the quarterback at Ohio State. So, this I would assume is probably a pretty good experience for CJ Stroud as he just sort of continues to grow and mature and, potentially become a bigger leader on this team in the coming years.
Yeah, you get thrust in this situation, and he's somebody who's so humble about so many things, and this is all about him. And you sit there and you listen to these players through the years, and it's like, oh, team goal, team goal, team goal. I'm not concerned about the individual goal. Well, now here you are on the stage for the nation's most prestigious individual award, whether or not you believe that it's just basically a quarterback award or however you see the Heisman in its current iteration. But he's up there and he's having to do this and he's having to answer questions about himself. And I think that's just a good lesson for everything. And I think it's going to be things that he's going to be able to take moving forward. It's not like he's not dealt with interviews, but those are, I think, a little bit more controlled in terms of, okay, you get your one question, you get your one question. Mm-hmm. A lot of national types here. I mean, he was having to answer it was kind of a firing line of questions, and he had to do 2 sessions. He had to do a print one, and then he had to do a video one. I happened to be in the video group. So, I think you're right that this is going to be something that's going to help with his overall growth, and I think that overall growth will help with his own leadership, because you do wonder about how vocal he can be as a leader. I mean, he certainly is a, do as I do type of leader, but, sometimes you need a do as I say type of leader. Not everybody comes right to Columbus and is JT Barrett in terms of being put on a leadership spot immediately. So, sometimes you have to grow into it.
One of the things that we heard as when Stroud was a favorite a couple weeks ago, there was sort of the idea that, well, his wide receivers are so good, you can't possibly reward him because his wide receivers are so good that it's not really him. It's just he has such good teammates. Some of those teammates, either he may be heading into his last game with them, or he may have already thrown his last pass to some of them. Did you get any indication from Stroud as far as which way, guys like Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson were leaning in terms of A, playing in the Rose Bowl, or B, leaving, at the end of the season?
I haven't gone through and done my forensic sleuthing on every syllable he said there. I mean, no, I don't think that there's an indication. I don't think that anything has been maybe relayed to him at this point. He said the things of, I would love to play one more game with them, but they've got to do what's right for them. Mm-hmm. He certainly said a lot of things about Chris Olave, and I hope I get that opportunity. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to watch what happens, and when will the decision come out from those two, whether they're going to go or not go. Do they try and keep it under wraps? I mean, they start practicing. I mean, that would be one hell of a decoy. Oh, I'm going to practice for 10 days. Then, I'm out. I'm just kidding. So I don't know. I didn't gain anything from what he said there about that, but maybe I'll go back and watch it in the morning and with a clearer mind and see if it makes a little more sense.
Yeah, I'm looking at a quote you had in an article earlier today. It said, I would love to play with them again, but at the end of the day, they have got to do what's best for them. So sounds like it is definitely not an absolute yes, but the decision may not have been made for sure yet. And you wonder if, you talked about Stroud being a Cali boy and that being a little bit of a motivation. Chris Olave also is a California boy, so perhaps he would be interested in playing one more game in California, but that is still TBD. Also TBD, who wins the Heisman? So I think the assumption is Stroud is probably not, he's not the favorite, at least right now. What are you expecting the order of finish to be, in some rough order of the 4 finalists?
I kind of went on record with my finalists, and I know I'm probably being a little optimistic to the home guy, but I'm going to say Young 1, Stroud 2, Hutchinson 3, Pickett 4, and it's kind of a situation of where I think a lot of voters are going to feel, hey, I'm bucking the system by putting a defensive player third. So, all right, there you go. He's third. So then you're like, okay, well, then it's between Pickett and Stroud for that second spot. So much of it's regionality of what's going to happen with a lot of that. But I think that the ACC was just such a mess. There were 2 competent offenses in that conference. I really don't know if they were outside of Clemson's defense, and Clemson's offense wasn't really that competent, but their defense was pretty decent. But I don't know. I guess I'm really impressed with a lot of things that Kenny Pickett did. He got a rule changed with his fake slide. So, you got to be impressed with that. But I don't know. I don't know if the weight of his stats compared to the weight of Stroud's stats. But maybe I'm just overanalyzing this and I can't see the forest for the trees.
They did, the NCAA did pass a rule outlawing the fake slide. I prefer to call that Pickett's charge, but that's no. Is that taken? Maybe that's taken. So you have you dropped a new episode of Big Meat Kickoff since you got to New York to talk a little bit more about the stuff in a little more detail than we're talking about it. We're kind of doing a little bit of a 101 Cliff Note kind of version. You can get a little more detail on the Big Meat Kickoff podcast. What do you have planned for Saturday?
That we'll see. I mean, we're going to get to take a site survey of the actual room of where they're going to do the Heisman. We will not be watching the ceremony from there. They will have us in a media room. But, we'll get a chance to do that. I plan on having a photo gallery of some sort. I'm going to go get some pizza. And I might even be able to get a Scoop Eats put together. But again, I'm going to have to figure out how to eat pizza and shoot video of myself. So we'll figure that one out. I will write some sort of post-mortem piece. If CJ pulls off the upset, fantastic. Maybe we'll do a live show at that point. If he comes in second, third, or fourth, we'll see. But I'll write some sort of piece, and then when I get back in town, if he doesn't win and I don't have to do the live show Monday on Big Me Kickoff, we will reconvene and we'll go into all of my Heisman thoughts at that point.
All right. And you can find Big Me Kickoff and all of our podcasts on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. You can just search Buckeye Scoop to find all of those. And you can subscribe right there and also leave us a 5-star rating and review, which will help other folks find those shows as well. Tony Gerderman and I are talking about trying to maybe throw together a live show at some point on Saturday. Logistics we're trying to sort those out. We both kind of have some crazy schedules on Saturday, and I don't know if we'll be able to loop Kevin in depending on when we do it, but we are aiming to do something like that because hashtag go live, you cowards. We have heard you. We will do our very best to make something happen. But the best way to make sure you are a part of that show is by subscribing to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. Hit that bell, then you get notified every time we go live. So if Tony and I or Tony, Kevin and I go live at some point on Saturday, you'll get a little pop-up notification on your phone so you won't miss it because we right now don't have a schedule completely nailed down. So if we go live, you can be a part of it. Just subscribe to that YouTube channel at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.